Behind the grand gates of Adelaide Cottage, three small voices echoed through the hallways with an unusual request. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis had discovered something that would challenge everything people thought they knew about royal children. What started as innocent questions about why some babies didn't have enough clothes would soon transform into a quiet revolution that reached the most vulnerable families across Britain. While the world watched their every public appearance, analyzing their waves and counting their smiles, these three children were planning something entirely different. Something that had nothing to do with photo opportunities or royal protocols. Something that would prove that even the youngest members of the royal family understood the weight of their privilege and the power of their compassion. This isn't a story about crowns or castles. It's about three children who decided that having everything meant they should help those who had nothing. And how their simple act of kindness created ripples that would touch thousands of lives in ways no one could have predicted. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Adelaide Cottage as Catherine, Princess of Wales, sorted through a mountain of tiny clothes scattered across her living room floor. Prince George, 10 years old and naturally curious, watched his mother with growing interest. Princess Charlotte, 8 and always ready with questions, picked up a small yellow onesie and examined it carefully. Prince Louis, 5 and full of energy, bounced on the sofa nearby, occasionally grabbing items from the pile. Catherine had been quietly organizing a donation for weeks, gathering outgrown baby clothes, blankets, and toys that had accumulated over the years. The royal household, despite its careful management, had acquired an abundance of gifts and clothing items for the children when they were younger. Many items had barely been worn, some still had tags attached, and others were duplicates of gifts received from well-wishers around the world. "Mummy, why are you putting all of Louis's old things in boxes?" Charlotte asked, holding up a tiny blue jumper that her youngest brother had worn only a few times. Catherine paused in her sorting, considering how to explain the concept to her children. She had always tried to raise them with an understanding of their privileged position while ensuring they remained grounded and aware of others' needs. This seemed like the perfect opportunity to teach them about giving back to their community. "Well, Charlotte, there are families who have new babies but don't have enough clothes or blankets for them," Catherine explained gently. "These clothes are too small for Louis now, but they could help other babies stay warm and comfortable." George looked up from the book he had been reading, his attention now fully captured. "You mean some babies don't have enough clothes?" His voice carried genuine surprise and concern. "That's right, George. Sometimes families struggle to buy everything a new baby needs. Baby clothes, nappies, blankets, toys, these things cost money, and not every family has enough to buy them all." Louis, despite his young age, seemed to grasp the seriousness of the conversation. He climbed down from the sofa and walked over to the pile of clothes, picking up a soft teddy bear that had been one of his favorites. "Can we give this too?" he asked, holding up the bear. "So the baby won't be lonely?" Catherine felt a surge of pride watching her youngest son's immediate willingness to share his beloved toy. This was exactly the kind of empathy and generosity she hoped to nurture in all three children. "That's very kind of you, Louis. But, are you sure? This was your special bear?" Louis nodded seriously. "The baby might be scared without a teddy." "I have lots of teddies." Charlotte immediately joined in, rushing to her room and returning with several dolls and soft toys. "I want to give these too. And maybe some of my old books? Mummy reads to us every night, so other mummies should read to their babies too." George, not to be outdone by his younger siblings, began examining the pile with new purpose. "What about blankets? Babies need to be warm, right? I remember when Louis was little, he was always wrapped in blankets." Catherine watched her children with growing amazement. She had intended this to be a simple donation of outgrown clothes, but her children were transforming it into something much more meaningful. They were genuinely thinking about what babies needed and what would make them comfortable and happy. "You know what, children? I think we can do something really special here. Let me tell you about baby banks." The three children gathered around their mother as she explained how baby banks worked. These were organizations that collected essential items for babies and distributed them to families in need. Unlike food banks, which people had heard about, baby banks specifically focused on providing everything a new baby required during their first months of life. Think about it, Catherine continued, when a baby is born, they need clean clothes every day because they get messy quite often. They need nappies changed many times throughout the day. They need blankets to keep warm, toys to help them learn and grow, and sometimes special things like bottles or bath items. Charlotte's eyes widened with understanding. So it's like a shop, but families don't have to pay? Exactly. Families can come to the baby bank when they need help, and volunteers give them whatever their baby needs. It means parents can spend their money on other important things like food and rent, while still making sure their baby has everything necessary. George was thinking deeply about this concept. But how do the baby banks get all the things to give away? That's where people like us come in, Catherine smiled. Families who have more than they need can donate items to help stock the baby bank. People donate things their own children have outgrown, or sometimes they buy new items specifically to donate. The conversation continued throughout the morning as the children became more and more excited about their donation. They began to see their contribution not just as clearing out old clothes, but as a way to directly help other families in their community. Louis found an old high chair that he had used as a toddler, now stored in the cottage's utility room. Babies need somewhere to sit when they eat, don't they? He announced, struggling to push the chair toward the growing donation pile. Charlotte discovered a box of nearly new bottles and sippy cups that had been saved just in case but were no longer needed. These are perfect. And they're all clean and ready to use. George contributed several picture books that had been his favorites when he was younger, carefully selecting stories that he thought would be perfect for reading to babies and toddlers. He included books with bright pictures, simple stories, and even some that made sounds when you pressed buttons. As the pile grew larger, Catherine realized they would need help transporting everything. She called William to explain what the children were doing, and he immediately offered to help when he returned from his morning appointments. You know, Catherine said to the children as they surveyed their impressive collection, this is exactly the kind of thing your great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth would have been proud of. She always believed in helping others quietly, without making a big fuss about it. The children had heard many stories about their great-grandmother and her dedication to service. They understood that being part of the royal family meant looking after other people, especially those who needed help. Will the families know that we gave these things? Charlotte asked. Catherine shook her head. No, and that's the beauty of it. When families visit the baby bank, they'll just see helpful items that someone thought to donate. They won't know where the donations came from, and that's perfectly fine. The important thing is that babies will be warm and comfortable. This concept of anonymous giving resonated strongly with all three children. They liked the idea that their contribution would help without anyone needing to know they were responsible. It felt more genuine somehow, more focused on actually helping rather than receiving recognition. As the morning progressed into afternoon, the children continued to find items to add to their donation. They discovered forgotten baby monitors, a barely used baby bath, and several soft blankets that had been gifts when Louis was born. George found a collection of tiny shoes and socks, many still in their original packaging. I remember when these were too big for Louis, he said. Now they'll be perfect for new babies. The children were learning practical lessons about baby care as they sorted through items. They discussed why babies needed so many outfit changes, how quickly babies outgrew their clothes, and why new parents might feel overwhelmed by all the things babies required. Catherine used this opportunity to explain more about different family situations. Some families had unexpected babies and hadn't had time to prepare. Others might have planned carefully but, then, faced financial difficulties. Some families might have babies earlier than expected and needed smaller clothes than they had prepared. The wonderful thing about baby banks, Catherine explained, is that they help families during what should be a happy time. Having a new baby is exciting, but it can also be stressful if parents are worried about having enough supplies. By late afternoon, their donation had grown beyond anything Catherine had originally envisioned. The living room was filled with neatly sorted boxes and bags, each labeled with contents and age ranges. The children had approached the task with remarkable organization for their ages, carefully considering what would be most useful. When William arrived home that evening, he was amazed by what his family had accomplished. The children eagerly showed him around their donation collection, explaining what each item was for and why they had chosen to include it. "This is incredible," William said, genuinely impressed. "You've created enough donations to help many different families." That evening over dinner, the family discussed their day's work. The children asked more questions about families who might need help, and both William and Catherine were struck by their children's genuine concern for others. George wondered aloud whether they could make this a regular activity. Charlotte suggested they could ask their friends if they had outgrown baby items to donate. Louis, in his typical enthusiastic way, declared that helping babies was the best thing ever. As the children prepared for bed, they were still talking excitedly about their donation. They had spent the day learning about need, generosity, and community support in the most hands-on way possible. Catherine tucked each child into bed that night knowing that something important had happened. Her simple plan to donate outgrown clothes had evolved into a meaningful family project that had taught her children valuable lessons about empathy, service, and the joy of giving. The boxes and bags sat ready in the living room, waiting to be delivered to families who would benefit from their contents. But, for the three young royals, the real gift had been the opportunity to learn about helping others and discovering how good it felt to make a difference. The next morning brought an unexpected development that would expand the children's charitable project beyond anything they had imagined. Catherine received a phone call from Sarah Mitchell, the coordinator of the Little Village Baby Bank in London, whom Catherine had contacted to arrange the donation pickup. "Your Royal Highness," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion, "I wanted to thank you personally for your generous donation. When I heard about what Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis had put together, I was deeply moved. Would it be possible for the children to visit our center? I think they would be amazed to see how baby banks actually work." Catherine discussed the invitation with William over breakfast, while the children ate their cereal and listened with growing excitement. The prospect of seeing where their donations would go and how baby banks operated fascinated all three of them. "Could we really go and see it, Mummy?" Charlotte asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. "I want to see how they organize everything." George was equally enthusiastic. "Yes. And maybe we could learn about how to help even more families." Louis, though not fully understanding all the details, was excited because his older siblings were excited. "Will there be babies there?" he asked hopefully. Catherine explained that baby banks didn't typically have babies present, but rather stored and organized all the items that babies needed, which volunteers then prepared for families to collect. This explanation led to a detailed discussion about how volunteers worked and what their daily activities involved. After careful consideration and coordination with their security detail, William and Catherine decided the visit would be educational and valuable for the children. They arranged for a private visit on a weekday when the center would be less busy, allowing the children to observe operations without disrupting services for families in need. 3 days later, the family arrived at the Little Village Baby Bank in Brentford. The children were immediately struck by the scale of the operation. The center occupied a large warehouse space, with shelves reaching toward the ceiling, all meticulously organized with different types of baby items. Sarah Mitchell greeted them warmly, and her genuine enthusiasm for her work was immediately apparent to the children. She had worked with baby banks for over 8 years and had seen firsthand the difference these organizations made in families' lives. "Welcome to Little Village," Sarah said, addressing the children directly. "Would you like to see how we organize all the donations we receive?" The tour began in the sorting area, where volunteers were carefully examining donated items. George watched in fascination as a volunteer checked a car seat for safety recalls and expiration dates. "Every item that comes in gets checked," Sarah explained. "We make sure everything is clean, safe, and in good working order before it goes to families. Car seats are especially important because they have specific safety requirements." Charlotte was amazed by the organization system. Different sections of the warehouse were dedicated to different age ranges and types of items. There were areas for newborn clothes, toddler toys, feeding equipment, and mobility items like prams and high chairs. "This is like the most organized shop ever," Charlotte observed, walking along aisles of neatly arranged donations. Louis was particularly drawn to the toy section, where volunteers were cleaning and sorting stuffed animals, rattles, and educational toys. "There are so many teddies," he exclaimed. "All the babies will have friends to cuddle." Sarah showed them the intake area, where new donations were received and catalogued. She explained that the baby bank served families across West London, providing essential items for children from birth up to age 5. "We help about 400 families every month," Sarah told them. "Each family has different needs, so we work with them individually to make sure they get exactly what their children require." The children were introduced to several volunteers, each with their own story about why they chose to help. Margaret, a grandmother of 6, had started volunteering after her own daughter had struggled as a young single mother. James, a retired teacher, enjoyed organizing the book section and creating age-appropriate reading packages for families. "I love knowing that these books will be read to children," James explained to George, who had been examining the book collection with particular interest. "Reading together is such an important part of childhood, and every family deserves access to good books." The family spent time in the preparation area, where volunteers assembled personalized packages for families who had made appointments. Each package was carefully tailored to the family's specific needs, based on detailed conversations about their circumstances and requirements. Catherine watched as a volunteer prepared a package for a family expecting twins. The package included double quantities of newborn clothes, 2 sets of bedding, bottles, nappies, and several books about caring for twins. "Twins!" Charlotte said with excitement. "That's like having 2 babies at exactly the same time. They'll need twice as much of everything." The children learned about the different reasons families might need support from baby banks. Sarah explained, in age-appropriate language, that sometimes families faced unexpected challenges. Parents might lose jobs, have medical emergencies, or face housing problems that made it difficult to afford baby supplies. "Sometimes babies arrive earlier than expected," Sarah continued, "and families haven't had time to prepare everything they need. Other times, families plan carefully but, then, something unexpected happens that changes their situation." George asked thoughtful questions about how families learned about baby bank services. Sarah explained that they worked with health visitors, social workers, children's centers, and other community organizations to reach families who could benefit from their help. "The most important thing," Sarah emphasized, "is that families feel comfortable coming here. We want every parent to feel respected and supported, never judged or embarrassed." The children observed volunteers preparing for the afternoon's appointment sessions. They watched as the preparation area was arranged with different packages, each labeled with family names and specific requirements. The attention to detail was impressive. Packages included not just the basics, but thoughtful extras like comfort items and age-appropriate toys. During their visit, the family met Janet, a young mother who had recently used the baby bank's services. With her permission, she shared her story with the children, explaining how the support had made a difference during a difficult period. "When my little boy was born, my husband was in hospital for several weeks," Janet explained. "I couldn't work, and money was really tight. Coming here meant I could make sure my baby had everything he needed while I focused on caring for both my husband and my son." The children listened attentively to Janet's story, beginning to understand the real impact of baby bank services. This wasn't just about providing items, it was about supporting families during challenging times and ensuring that financial stress didn't prevent parents from caring for their children properly. Louis, in his direct way, asked Janet, "Is your husband better now?" "Yes, he's much better, thank you for asking," Janet smiled. "And we're doing well now. In fact, we're planning to volunteer here ourselves when we can, to help other families the way we were helped." This concept of families who had received help later becoming volunteers resonated strongly with the children. They could see how the baby bank created a community of mutual support, where people helped each other through difficult times. Charlotte was fascinated by the volunteer training area, where new volunteers learned about different aspects of baby bank operations. Sarah explained that volunteers needed to understand child development, safety requirements for different items, and how to communicate sensitively with families who might be experiencing stress. "Being a volunteer here is about more than just sorting donations," Sarah said. "It's about treating every family with dignity and respect, and making sure they feel welcomed and supported." The children spent time in the administration area, where they learned about the coordination required to run a baby bank effectively. Staff members tracked inventory, scheduled appointments, coordinated with other community organizations, and managed the logistics of collecting donations from various sources. George was particularly interested in the inventory management system. "How do you keep track of everything?" he asked, looking at the computer screen showing different categories and quantities of available items. Sarah showed him the database system that tracked donations, distributions, and current stock levels. "We need to know what we have available so we can tell families what we can provide," she explained. "And we track what goes out so we know what to request from donors." As the visit continued, the children began to understand the complexity and scale of baby bank operations. What had seemed like a simple concept, collecting baby items to give to families in need, actually involved careful organization, community partnerships, volunteer coordination, and ongoing relationship building with families. The afternoon concluded with the children helping to sort some recent donations in the volunteer area. They carefully examined baby clothes for stains or damage, organized toys by age group, and helped create packages for families with upcoming appointments. Working alongside experienced volunteers, the children gained hands-on experience in baby bank operations. They learned about checking items for safety, organizing donations effectively, and thinking about what combinations of items would be most helpful for different family situations. Charlotte worked with Margaret to organize a selection of books for a family with 3 children of different ages. "The baby won't be able to read yet," Charlotte reasoned, "but the older children can help read to the baby, and the parents will have books to read aloud." George helped James check a collection of toys for missing pieces or safety concerns. "This one has all its parts," he announced, examining a musical activity table. "And it still works properly." Lewis assisted with sorting baby clothes by size, though his organizational skills were still developing. His enthusiasm made up for any lack of precision, and the volunteers were charmed by his determination to help. As the family prepared to leave, Sarah thanked them again for their donation and their visit. "Your children have seen today how their generosity directly impacts families in their community," she said. "I hope they understand what a difference their contribution will make." The drive home was filled with conversation about everything the children had learned. They talked about the volunteers they had met, the families who would benefit from their donations, and the possibility of continuing their involvement with baby bank work. That evening, the children couldn't stop talking about their visit. They had gained a comprehensive understanding of how baby banks operated and had seen firsthand the positive impact these organizations had on families in need. More importantly, they had learned that helping others required ongoing commitment, careful organization, and genuine care for the people being served. The impact of their baby bank visit extended far beyond what anyone had anticipated. Within a week of returning home, the 3 children had developed an unexpected passion for helping families with young children. Their dinner table conversations had shifted from typical childhood topics to discussions about child development, family support systems, and community service. George, in particular, had been deeply affected by meeting the volunteers at Little Village. He began researching baby banks across the United Kingdom, discovering that there were over 200 such organizations operating throughout the country. His natural curiosity and developing research skills, encouraged by his tutors, led him to compile detailed information about how these organizations functioned in different communities. "Did you know, Mummy," George announced over breakfast one morning, "that baby banks help over 40,000 families every year across Britain? And each baby bank operates differently depending on what their local community needs most." Catherine was impressed by her son's thorough research. "What else did you learn, George?" "Well, some baby banks focus mainly on emergency situations, like when families suddenly need help. Others work more with health visitors and social workers to provide ongoing support. And some specialize in particular things, like providing equipment for premature babies or helping families who have to stay in hospital for long periods." Charlotte had been equally industrious, but her focus had shifted toward the practical aspects of baby care. She had been asking detailed questions about what babies needed at different stages of development, leading to educational conversations with Catherine about child development and family dynamics. "I've been thinking about the family we met with twins," Charlotte said thoughtfully. Having two babies at once must be really hard work. They would need feeding at different times, and changing, and both babies might cry at once. How do parents manage all of that? These conversations led to Catherine explaining more about the challenges of parenthood, particularly for families facing financial stress or other difficulties. She was careful to present information in age-appropriate ways while still helping the children understand real-world complexities. Louis, meanwhile, had become fascinated with the idea of volunteer work. Despite his young age, he had grasped the concept that adults chose to spend their time helping others without expecting anything in return. This altruistic behavior captured his imagination in a way that surprised his parents. "When I'm older, I want to work at the baby bank too," Louis declared. "I could help organize the teddies and make sure they're all clean and soft for the babies." William and Catherine were touched by their children's sustained interest in charitable work. However, they were also aware that maintaining this engagement would require careful planning and ongoing opportunities for meaningful involvement. Catherine contacted Sarah Mitchell to discuss possibilities for continued connection with Little Village. Sarah was delighted by the children's enthusiasm and proposed several ways they could remain involved in baby bank work. "What if the children could help us with specific projects?" Sarah suggested during a phone conversation with Catherine. "We're always working on initiatives that could benefit from young perspectives and enthusiasm." This conversation led to the children's participation in their first major baby bank project, creating new parent welcome packages specifically designed to support families during their first weeks with a new baby. The project began with the children conducting research into what new parents found most challenging about caring for infants. With Catherine's guidance, they interviewed several families in their community who had recently had babies, asking questions about what support they had needed and what items had been most useful during the early weeks. George took detailed notes during these conversations, creating lists of practical items and support materials that new parents consistently mentioned as valuable. His systematic approach impressed the adults he interviewed, many of whom commented on his mature understanding of family dynamics. Charlotte focused on the emotional aspects of new parenthood, asking questions about how parents felt during the first weeks with their babies and what helped them feel more confident in their new roles. Her natural empathy and genuine interest in others' experiences led to meaningful conversations about the emotional challenges of parenthood. Louis contributed by helping to test baby items for ease of use and appeal. His reactions to different toys, books, and comfort items provided valuable feedback about what babies and toddlers might enjoy most. The research phase took several weeks, during which the children learned extensively about infant development, postnatal support systems, and the various challenges new families might face. They discovered that many new parents felt overwhelmed not just by practical concerns like feeding and changing, but also by emotional challenges such as lack of sleep, isolation, and uncertainty about whether they were caring for their babies correctly. Based on their research, the children developed proposals for comprehensive welcome packages that would address both practical and emotional needs. Their proposals included traditional baby items like clothes and blankets, but also incorporated elements designed to support parents' well-being and confidence. George proposed including information cards with each package, containing practical tips about baby care written in simple, reassuring language. "New parents told me they sometimes felt like they were supposed to know things automatically," he explained to his family. "But everyone has to learn how to care for babies, so helpful information might make them feel more confident." Charlotte suggested including comfort items specifically for parents, such as herbal tea packets and encouraging notes. "The mummies we talked to said they sometimes forgot to look after themselves because they were so focused on their babies," she observed. "Maybe we could remind them that taking care of themselves helps them take better care of their babies." Louis proposed including extra special comfort items for babies, such as particularly soft blankets or musical toys that could help soothe fussy infants. His selections were based on his own preferences as a young child, combined with observations about what seemed to calm babies he had met. Working with Sarah Mitchell and the Little Village team, the children refined their proposals into practical package designs. The final welcome packages included carefully selected baby essentials, parent support items, and informational materials designed to boost new parents' confidence and sense of community connection. The packaging process became a family project that extended over several weekends. The children worked together to assemble packages, ensuring that each one was complete and presented in a welcoming way. They wrote personalized welcome notes for each package, expressing their hopes that the items would be useful and that the families would feel supported during their first weeks with their babies. George took responsibility for checking that each package contained all the intended items, maintaining detailed lists to ensure consistency across packages. His organizational skills proved invaluable in managing the project's logistics. Charlotte focused on the presentation aspects, ensuring that packages were attractively arranged and that the welcome notes were clearly written and encouraging. She also helped select appropriate color schemes and decoration for the package containers. Lewis contributed enthusiasm and energy to the packaging process, though his contributions sometimes required gentle redirection when his excitement led to disorganization. His genuine joy in the project, however, kept everyone motivated during the detailed work of package assembly. The project culminated in a special delivery session at Little Village, where the children personally handed over their completed welcome packages to Sarah Mitchell and her team. The baby bank staff was impressed by the thoughtfulness and quality of the packages, and several volunteers commented on the unique perspective the children had brought to understanding new parents' needs. "These packages show such careful consideration of what families actually need," Sarah told the children during their delivery visit. "You've created something that will genuinely help new parents feel more prepared and supported." The success of the Welcome Package project led to requests from other baby banks for similar initiatives. Sarah Mitchell had shared information about the project with colleagues at other organizations, and several expressed interest in developing their own versions of new parent welcome packages based on the children's model. This expanding interest created opportunities for the children to become involved in a broader network of baby bank organizations. They began corresponding with coordinators from baby banks in different parts of the country, sharing their research findings and package design ideas. George started maintaining a correspondence with baby bank coordinators in Scotland, Wales, and Northern England, learning about regional differences in family needs and community support systems. These exchanges broadened his understanding of how local circumstances affected the work of charitable organizations. Charlotte developed a pen-pal relationship with volunteers from several London baby banks, focusing on creative approaches to making families feel welcomed and supported. Her correspondents were impressed by her insights into the emotional aspects of family support work. Lewis, though too young for extensive written correspondence, enjoyed hearing about the different baby banks and their activities. His enthusiasm for the work remained strong, and he often asked when they could visit other organizations or work on new projects. The children's expanding involvement in baby bank work began attracting attention from other charitable organizations focused on family support. They received invitations to visit children's centers, family support groups, and other community organizations working with families in need. Each new experience added to their understanding of the complex challenges facing families in their community and the various ways organizations work to provide support. They learned about food banks, clothing banks, toy libraries, and other resource-sharing initiatives that helped families stretch limited budgets. The children's education was enriched by these experiences in ways that traditional classroom learning alone could not provide. They developed practical skills in organization, communication, and project management while gaining deep understanding of community service and social responsibility. Their tutors noted improvements in their research skills, writing abilities, and critical thinking as they applied academic skills to real-world projects. The children were learning to ask thoughtful questions, analyze information systematically, and develop practical solutions to complex problems. William and Catherine observed their children developing increased empathy, confidence, and sense of purpose through their charitable involvement. The work provided meaningful outlets for their natural curiosity and energy while teaching valuable lessons about service, community, and the importance of helping others. As the initial Welcome Package project concluded, the children were already developing ideas for their next charitable initiative. Their experience had shown them that even young people could make meaningful contributions to their community, and they were eager to continue their involvement in supporting families with young children. As autumn arrived, the children's involvement with baby bank work had evolved into something far more significant than anyone had initially imagined. Their success with the welcome packages had generated interest from family support organizations across the United Kingdom, leading to invitations for consultation on other projects aimed at helping families with young children. The first major expansion of their work came through an unexpected partnership with the National Childbirth Trust, an organization that provided education and support for new and expectant parents. The trust had heard about the Children's Welcome Package project and was particularly interested in their research into what new parents found most challenging about early infancy. Jennifer Walsh, the Trust's community outreach coordinator, contacted Catherine to discuss the possibility of the children contributing to a new initiative aimed at supporting families in rural areas who had limited access to traditional parenting resources. The insights your children gathered about new parent experiences were remarkably thorough, Jennifer explained during a video call with the family. We're developing support packages for families in remote areas who can't easily attend parenting classes or access baby groups. Your children's perspective on what families actually need could be invaluable. This new project would require the children to think beyond the immediate needs they had addressed with their baby bank packages. Rural families faced unique challenges, including isolation from support networks, limited access to healthcare providers, and difficulties obtaining baby supplies due to distance from shops and services. George approached this new challenge with his characteristic thoroughness, beginning research into rural family life and the specific obstacles these families encountered. He discovered that rural families often relied more heavily on online resources for parenting information and had to plan more carefully for baby supply purchases due to infrequent trips to larger towns. Rural families need different kinds of support, George explained to his siblings after several days of research. They might not see other families with babies very often, so they can feel isolated. And if they need something urgently for their baby, they can't just pop to a nearby shop. Charlotte focused her attention on the emotional aspects of rural parenting, particularly the challenges of raising children without easy access to parent groups, baby classes, or informal support networks. Through interviews arranged by the National Childbirth Trust, she spoke with several rural mothers about their experiences. Some of the moms said they felt lonely when they had questions about their babies, Charlotte reported to her family. In cities, parents can meet other parents easily, but, in the countryside, families might live far apart from each other. Lewis contributed his perspective on what would keep children entertained and happy in rural settings, where access to play groups, libraries, and organized activities might be limited. His ideas focused on toys and activities that worked well for solitary play or for families spending extended time at home. The children's research into rural family life led them to develop a deeper understanding of how geography and community structure affected family experiences. They learned about the challenges of accessing healthcare, education, and social services in remote areas, and how these challenges particularly affected families with young children. Working with the National Childbirth Trust team, the children developed proposals for rural family support packages that addressed the unique needs they had identified. These packages would include traditional baby items, but would be supplemented with resources specifically designed for isolated families. George proposed including detailed information guides that covered topics typically addressed in parenting classes, written in accessible language and organized for easy reference. If families can't attend classes, he reasoned, we should bring the class information to them. Charlotte suggested including connection resources that would help rural families find and contact other families in their area. Maybe we could help them discover that they're not as alone as they think, she said. There might be other families nearby who would like to meet and support each other. Lewis focused on entertainment and development resources for babies and toddlers that would work well in home environments without requiring trips to specialized locations. His proposals included books, musical instruments, and creative play materials that families could use independently. The development of rural support packages required the children to learn about package distribution logistics, particularly the challenges of reaching families in remote locations. They worked with the National Childbirth Trust to understand how packages could be delivered effectively to areas with limited postal services or difficult access. This logistical planning introduced the children to aspects of charitable work they hadn't previously considered. They learned about cost management, volunteer coordination across large geographic areas, and the importance of partnership between different organizations serving the same communities. Their involvement in rural family support led to connections with other organizations working in remote areas. They began corresponding with groups focused on rural education, healthcare access, and community development, learning how these different services worked together to support rural families. Through these connections, the children discovered the Highland Family Support Network, an organization serving families across the Scottish Highlands and Islands. This organization faced particular challenges due to the extreme remoteness of some families they served and the additional complications created by island communities. Sarah McLeod, coordinator of the Highland Network, invited the children to learn about their work through video calls and written correspondence. The children were fascinated by the unique challenges faced by island families, including weather-related travel disruptions that could isolate families for extended periods. Sometimes ferry services are cancelled for days because of storms, Sarah explained during one of their calls. Families need to be prepared to manage independently for longer periods than mainland families might face. This conversation led the children to develop ideas for emergency preparedness packages specifically designed for families who might face extended isolation due to weather or transport disruptions. These packages would include extended supplies of baby essentials along with entertainment and comfort items for longer periods of home confinement. George researched weather patterns and transport schedules for various island communities, developing understanding of how seasonal challenges affected family life in these areas. His research informed package contents designed to address specific seasonal needs. Charlotte focused on the emotional challenges of extended isolation, particularly for parents who might become anxious about caring for children during emergency situations. Her contributions emphasized comfort and reassurance items for both children and parents. Lewis considered what would keep children happy and occupied during long periods when they couldn't leave their homes. His suggestions included a variety of quiet activities, creative projects, and comfort items that would work well in confined spaces. The emergency preparedness packages represented a significant evolution in the children's understanding of charitable work. They were learning to anticipate needs rather than simply responding to immediate requests, and to consider how environmental factors affected family life in ways they had never previously imagined. Their work with remote and island communities also introduced them to cultural considerations in charitable work. Different communities had varying traditions around child-rearing, family support, and community assistance that needed to be respected and incorporated into support programs. Sarah McLeod helped the children understand how their packages could be designed to complement rather than conflict with traditional community support systems. In small communities, families usually help each other, she explained. Our packages work best when they support these existing relationships rather than replacing them. This cultural awareness led the children to modify their package designs to include items that facilitated community connection and mutual support. They began including materials that encouraged families to share resources and support each other, rather than relying solely on external assistance. The children's expanding understanding of different community needs led to invitations to consult on other charitable projects. They began working with urban family support organizations, learning how city families face different but equally significant challenges in accessing adequate support. Through this broader involvement, the children developed appreciation for the complexity of family support work and the importance of tailoring assistance to specific community needs and circumstances. They learned that effective charitable work required deep understanding of the people being served and careful attention to cultural and environmental factors. Their educational experiences had expanded far beyond traditional classroom learning. They were developing practical skills in research, analysis, communication, and project management while gaining sophisticated understanding of social issues and community dynamics. William and Catherine observed their children developing increased confidence, empathy, and analytical thinking through their charitable involvement. The work provided meaningful contexts for applying academic skills while teaching valuable lessons about service, cultural awareness, and the importance of understanding community needs. The children's reputation for thoughtful, well-researched charitable work began attracting attention from other organizations serving families and children. They received requests for consultation on projects ranging from supporting families affected by domestic violence to developing resources for families with children who had special needs. Each new project expanded their understanding of the diverse challenges facing families in their society and the various ways communities and organizations work to provide support. They were learning that effective charitable work required ongoing commitment, continuous learning, and willingness to adapt approaches based on changing needs and circumstances. As they looked toward winter, the children were already developing plans for their next major initiative. Their experience had shown them that thoughtful, research-based charitable work could make meaningful differences in families' lives, and they were eager to continue expanding their involvement in supporting their community's most vulnerable members. Winter brought an unexpected opportunity that would demonstrate the full impact of the children's charitable work over the previous months. The severe weather conditions across the United Kingdom created emergency situations for many families, particularly those in remote areas and families already facing financial difficulties. The children watched news reports about families stranded by snow, power outages affecting heating systems, and transport disruptions preventing people from reaching shops for essential supplies. Their months of working with various family support organizations had given them sophisticated understanding of how such emergencies particularly affected families with young children. Babies can't tell their parents when they're too cold, Charlotte observed during a family discussion about the weather emergency. And they need feeding and changing even when families are stuck in their homes without power or heat. George had been monitoring weather reports and emergency service updates with characteristic thoroughness. Some families have been without power for 3 days already, he reported. The emergency preparedness packages we designed for island communities would be perfect for situations like this. Lewis, now 6 and increasingly articulate about charitable work, suggested that they should help families affected by the weather emergency. We know what babies need when they can't go outside for a long time, he said. Maybe we could help the families who are stuck. These observations led to conversations with Sarah Mitchell at Little Village and other coordinators in their network of baby bank contacts. The children learned that emergency situations created sudden spikes in demand for family support services, often overwhelming organizations that were already operating at capacity. During emergencies like this, Sarah explained during a phone conversation, we see families who wouldn't normally need support suddenly finding themselves in difficult situations. A power outage might spoil all their baby formula, or transport disruptions might prevent them from reaching shops for nappies. The children realized that their months of research and package development had prepared them to respond effectively to this emergency situation. They had developed understanding of family needs, established relationships with support organizations, and created package designs that addressed exactly the kinds of challenges families were facing. Working with their network of baby bank contacts, the children proposed coordinating a special emergency response initiative. This would involve multiple organizations working together to provide rapid support to families affected by the severe weather conditions. The coordination required for this emergency response taught the children advanced lessons about charitable work logistics. They learned about resource allocation, volunteer management across multiple organizations, and the complex communications required to coordinate efforts between different groups. George took responsibility for tracking which organizations were serving which geographic areas, ensuring that response efforts didn't overlap inefficiently while also making sure no areas were accidentally missed. His detailed organizational charts helped coordinate efforts between over 20 different family support organizations. Charlotte focused on communications with families, helping to develop information materials that explained how families could access emergency support services. Her work ensured that families understood what assistance was available and how to request help during the emergency situation. Lewis contributed by helping to prepare emergency packages specifically designed for families with babies and toddlers who might be confined to their homes for extended periods. His selections emphasized comfort and entertainment items that would help keep young children calm during stressful situations. The Emergency Response Initiative operated for 2 weeks during the worst of the winter weather. The children worked from Adelaide Cottage, coordinating activities through phone calls, video conferences, and online collaboration tools with their network of charitable organizations. Their coordinating role allowed them to observe the full scope of their charitable network's impact. They tracked packages delivered to over 800 families across the United Kingdom, from highland communities cut off by snow to urban families whose heating systems had failed during power outages. We helped families in places I didn't even know existed, Charlotte marveled as she reviewed delivery reports from Scotland, Wales, Northern England, and rural areas across the country. The success of the emergency response demonstrated how the children's months of relationship building and careful preparation had created capabilities far beyond what any single organization could have achieved independently. Their network approach allowed rapid scaling of support services during the crisis. More significantly, the emergency response revealed the lasting impact of the children's earlier work. Many families receiving emergency support were using welcome packages or rural support packages the children had helped develop months earlier. The emergency highlighted how their thoughtful preparation had created ongoing benefits for families across the country. During the recovery period following the weather emergency, the children received feedback from families who had been supported during the crisis. These responses provided powerful confirmation of the practical impact their work had achieved. Emma Thompson, a mother from rural Wales, wrote to thank them for an emergency package that had sustained her family during a 4-day power outage. "Your package included everything we needed to keep our 6-month-old daughter comfortable when we couldn't leave our house or warm bottles normally," she wrote. "The battery-powered bottle warmer and extra blankets made all the difference." Similar letters arrived from families across the country, each describing specific ways the children's packages had helped during the emergency. Parents wrote about comfort items that had kept children calm, practical supplies that had sustained families through difficult periods, and information materials that had helped them feel more confident about caring for their children during challenging circumstances. These responses helped the children understand the real-world impact of their charitable work in ways that statistics and organizational reports couldn't convey. They could see how their careful research and thoughtful package design had translated into practical help for families during genuine emergencies. The emergency response also attracted attention from larger charitable organizations and government agencies involved in emergency planning. The children received invitations to consult on emergency preparedness initiatives and to share their insights about family needs during crisis situations. Representatives from the Department for Work and Pensions contacted Catherine to discuss the children's emergency coordination model and its potential applications for larger-scale disaster response planning. The children's network approach and focus on family-specific needs had demonstrated effectiveness that professional emergency planners wanted to understand and potentially incorporate into official response systems. This recognition led to the children being invited to participate in a government consultation about improving emergency support for families with young children. Their months of hands-on experience with family support organizations had given them practical insights that complemented the theoretical knowledge of professional emergency planners. George presented detailed analysis of how different types of emergencies affected families differently, based on his observations during the winter weather response. His systematic approach to understanding emergency impacts impressed government officials who were accustomed to less thorough preparation from much older consultants. Charlotte shared insights about the emotional aspects of emergency response, particularly how uncertainty and stress affected parents' ability to care for their children effectively. Her observations helped emergency planners understand how support packages could address psychological as well as practical needs. Lewis contributed perspectives on what helped children remain calm and comfortable during emergencies, based on his extensive experience testing comfort items and entertainment materials for various package designs. The government consultation culminated in invitations for the children to participate in developing national guidelines for emergency support to families with young children. Their work would inform official policy about how emergency services could better address family-specific needs during future crisis situations. This policy involvement represented remarkable evolution from their original simple donation of outgrown baby clothes. In less than a year, the children had progressed from basic charitable giving to influencing national emergency preparedness policy through their demonstrated expertise in understanding and addressing family support needs. Their educational development had been transformed by their charitable involvement. They had gained practical experience in research, analysis, project management, organizational coordination, and policy development that would have been impossible to achieve through traditional classroom learning alone. William and Catherine observed their children developing confidence, empathy, analytical thinking, and leadership skills that prepared them well for their future roles as members of the royal family. The work had taught valuable lessons about service, community responsibility, and the importance of understanding and addressing others' needs. The children's charitable work had also demonstrated that age was not necessarily a barrier to making meaningful contributions to society. Their careful research, thoughtful analysis, and genuine concern for others had enabled them to achieve impacts that many adult organizations struggled to accomplish. As spring approached, the children were already developing plans for their next major charitable initiative. Their success with emergency response had given them confidence to tackle even more complex challenges facing families in their community. They had learned that effective charitable work required ongoing commitment, continuous learning, and willingness to adapt approaches based on changing circumstances and new understanding. Most importantly, they had discovered the deep satisfaction that came from using their privilege and resources to make genuine differences in other people's lives. Their year of involvement with baby bank work had established foundations for lifelong engagement with charitable service. They had developed skills, relationships, and understanding that would continue growing throughout their lives, enabling them to make increasingly significant contributions to their community and society. The three young royals had proven that even children could engage meaningfully with complex social issues when they approached charitable work with genuine concern, careful preparation, and willingness to learn from the people they hoped to serve. Their quiet contribution to baby bank work had rippled outward to touch thousands of families and influence national emergency preparedness policy, demonstrating the far-reaching impact that thoughtful charitable engagement could achieve.